This just in, some breaking news. Cuba just opened fire on a Florida-registered speedboat and killed 4 people. 6 more are wounded tonight. Now, these were not soldiers. These were not smugglers. According to the New York Times, this was a flotilla of civilians trying to rescue their own family members from a communist dictatorship 90 miles from our shore. And the mainstream media almost let the story disappear without a trace. We've got reaction right now from J.D. Vance. We've also got reaction from Marco Rubio and some of the early reporting. But think about what just happened here. American civilians left Florida on a rescue mission to bring home their loved ones from Cuba. Cuban border guards intercepted them and opened fire. 4 people are now dead, 6 severely wounded. A communist regime just murdered Americans on an American-registered vessel. And the initial response so far from Washington, well, it's been interesting, to say the least. But I have a feeling that Cuba is going to F around and find out, similar to what happened in Venezuela. Now, Florida Congressman Carlos Jimenez, he called it murder. He said the Cuban dictatorship attacked a boat from Florida and killed those on board, and that this regime must be relegated to the dustbin of history. Florida Attorney General James Uthmeyer told Fox News his office is now investigating. Said Havana is not an honest neighbor. That is the understatement of the century. This is not a diplomatic incident. This is an act of war against American civilians. And, you know, your family could have been on the boat. Your neighbors could have been on that boat. People from your community left a Florida dock to save the people they love, and now they're coming home in body bags. And where's the cable news? You see, here's what makes this even more infuriating. Cuba is claiming that the boat violated their territorial waters and that the crew shot first. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? You see, that's the official story from a communist dictatorship that has lied to the world for 65 straight years. The New York Times confirmed this was a civilian flotilla trying to extract relatives. These were families, mothers, fathers, brothers, trying to get their people out. In the same administration that launched Operation Midnight Hammer against Iran and removed Maduro from Venezuela with carrier strike groups, is now watching Cuba gun down our people in open water. Representative Jimenez is demanding action. Florida AG launching probes. The question is, what does President Trump do next? Because Cuba just crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. So we have this. The Florida Attorney General says he's opening an investigation into this. Can we get this on the screen? Florida Attorney General says he's opening an investigation into the Cuba shooting after Cuban forces killed 4 aboard a U.S. registered speedboat. Vice President Vance says we don't know a whole lot, Mario Nafal adding that that's Washington speak, for we have no idea what happened. Well, I'm sure they're going to get to the bottom of it.
Because I just don't know more.
Can you talk about the legal authority under which the federal government pauses legally obligated funds under mandatory funding from Congress, such as Medicaid? And secondly, if you could tell us anything you know about the situation off the coast of Cuba, where there's a speedboat shot. We've been briefed on that. You know, if Americans were killed or injured in it.
Yeah, so on the second thing, actually, Marco briefed me about 15 minutes ago on it, but we don't know a whole lot of details, and so I'll defer to the White House to provide more updates as we get them. Certainly, you know, a situation that we're monitoring. Hopefully, it's not as bad as we fear it could be, but can't say more because I just don't know more. On the question of the legal,
can you talk about the?
I can't say more because I don't have all of the answers. Well, now Marco Rubio trying to find those answers.
Began to look into it. So this morning we were made aware by Cuban authorities of an incident off the coast of Cuba. We immediately began to look into it. As it stands now, the Department of Homeland Security, the Coast Guard, others are involved. The majority of the information we still possess is what Cuban authorities are providing both the public and the U.S. government. We have our embassy on the ground in Havana working this as we speak, asking for access to the people that were on those vessels, if they were American citizens or permanent residents. According to the Cuban regime, the boat was registered in Florida. We're tracking that down. We will know shortly, and we will know quickly, many more facts about this incident than we know right now. The majority of the facts are Cubans. We will verify that independently, and as we gather more information, then we'll be prepared to respond accordingly. I'm not going to speculate, because I'm not going to opine on what I don't yet know, but we're going to find out exactly what happened here, and then we'll respond accordingly. So
I think Cuba's going to find out. You know what I'm saying? So the Florida Congressman Carlos Jimenez demands urgent investigation into the reported killings aboard the U.S. registered vessel. Jimenez issued the following statement after the alarming reports that agents of the Cuban regime executed 4 individuals aboard a Florida registered vessel near Santa Clara province in Cuba. The incident raises serious concerns about the use of lethal force against individuals on a vessel registered in the United States. He says, I'm calling for an immediate investigation into this massacre. United States authorities must determine whether any of the victims were U.S. citizens or legal residents and establish exactly what occurred. The regime in Cuba must be relegated to the dustbin of history for its countless crimes against humanity. Now, the Cuban government has officially confirmed that they have fired upon 4 killed Americans and injured 6 others. Here is some of the early news as it broke.
About this incident. Cuba's government says 4 people on a speedboat registered in the United States have been shot and killed.
Cuba's Interior Ministry says the boat was intercepted in Cuban waters.
NBC News correspondent George Solis is tracking this one now. George, what more have we learned about this incident?
Yeah, guys, this is a very fluid situation. As you mentioned, the Cuban government announcing that 4 people were killed as a result of this boat attack and 6 others were injured. From the Ministry of the Interior there, what we're learning is they're saying this morning today, they detected an illegal speedboat there off the northern coast of Cuba. They're saying their own officials approached this boat and there was a ensuing gunfight, and during this gunfight, they're saying that 4 of these people on board this boat, we don't know what they were doing there, we don't know what their purpose was, were reportedly killed, and these 6 others were injured. They were then transported. We're not sure where at this hour. Cuba saying that as a consequence of this, they are trying to protect their waters there. They are, in their words, the Cuban state is safeguarding its sovereignty and stability in the region right now. We are starting to get some reaction from lawmakers, specifically Representative Carlos Jimenez here in Florida, who on X posted a little bit ago saying, quote, the dictatorship in Cuba has just attacked a boat from Florida and murdered those on board. Those are his words, saying this regime, must be regulated to the dustbin of history right now.
So we're hearing echoes of Jimenez from the mainstream press. The incident off of Villa Clara raises questions about Cuba's official account as the shooting involved Florida registered boat happened on the morning of February 25th this year, 2026. Speedboat registered in the state of Florida, FL 7726SH, was intercepted near Cayo Falcones in Cuba's Villa Clara province, according to a statement released by the Ministry of Interior at Cuba. Cuban authorities claim the vessel was approximately 1 nautical mile northeast of El Pino Canal Channel when a border guard unit approached to conduct an identification check, allegedly triggered an exchange of gunfire. However, the official statement leaves significant unanswered questions. No independent verification, precise coordinates, or visual evidence have been provided to confirm the boat was in Cuban territorial waters at the time. The report lacks clarity regarding the specific protocols followed before lethal force was used. Cuban authorities state that 4 foreign aggressors were killed. Of course, that's language you'd hear from a communist dictatorship. They were killed and 6 others injured. The scale of the reported casualties raises concerns about proportionality, particularly if the vessel was privately operated and not affiliated with any U.S. government activity. More news on this from ABC.
Then that opens question. Can't trust anything that the Cubans say. So if they say it was only a mile offshore, then that opens questions like what was that speedboat doing there, because it was within the 12 nautical mile legal limit of sovereign territory of Cuba. If it was outside of 12 miles and this happened, which we will be able to probably determine, then that is something very, very different, and that becomes a very big diplomatic incident. So 4 people dead, 6 people injured. That's about the only thing we can trust. The Cubans say that the U.S. boat fired first on the Cuban boat. Hard to believe that, but we need to wait and see how close they were actually, and that will determine how big a deal this actually becomes.
And we're being very careful with the language here because we're saying an American speedboat. We're not saying that Americans were killed. We don't know yet. I don't think we can confirm, right, if they were Americans or not.
Can't trust anything that the Cubans say.
So were they within the 12-mile nautical zone? That remains to be seen. Of course, that does raise the stakes. Cuban Coast Guard opens fire on the U.S. registered speedboat, 4 dead, 6 injured. An American registered vessel, gunfire, multiple fatalities, and we're hearing about it first from foreign statements. Cuba claims the boat violated territorial waters. Here's some more.
16. A continuación damos lectura a la siguiente nota
We're going to
informativa.
skip that because I don't speak Spanish, but the question is, where is the full U.S. account? Where is the satellite data? AIS tracking? Is there body cam or maritime footage? Was it smuggling? Was it provocation? These are all questions that remain to be answered. Of course, it's really too early to determine. And here's some images. I don't believe that, I'm not sure if this is the actual boat itself or if this is a Cuban boat. But this is apparently the location of the incident. You can see on your screen there its proximity to Canal El Pino. And so that's what we have right now. Fox News also covering it. Cuba's Coast Guard says it killed 4 people and wounded 6 during a gunfight with a U.S. registered speedboat off the island's coast. So 4 people left Florida this morning. They were on a mission of love. They wanted to bring their family home from a communist prison island. Cuba met them with bullets and body bags. The sitting congressman is calling it murder. The Florida Attorney General launching an investigation. And the story almost died in silence because the mainstream media couldn't be bothered to lead with American blood in the water. That silence ends right now. It ends right here. It ends on this show. Now, here's what I need you to understand tonight. See, Cuba is not some faraway country on the other side of the world. It's 90 miles from Key West. You can practically see it on a clear day. And that communist dictatorship just opened fire on a boat full of people from Florida who were trying to rescue their own families. 4 dead, 6 wounded. Congressman Jimenez called it murder. Florida AG James Othmeyer said Havana is not an honest neighbor. His office is investigating President Trump. He's shown the world what happens when foreign governments cross American red lines. Venezuela found out. Iran is finding out. The question tonight is whether Cuba understands what comes next. So do you think President Trump should respond to Cuba the same way he responded to Venezuela and Iran? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to support our work, hit the merch shop.